hello. Hello. Let's see. Let me turn this down a wee bit. Turn it up there. There we go. That sounds good. Let's see. Turn me up a little bit. That should be good. I can move this too. So it's right in front of me. Good. Is that all looking good? Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Well, welcome to everyone who is already here. Onii was pretty good, is apparently first. So tonight, we're going to be talking about, just Wanderer stuff, just different rulings. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, everything affects Wanderer, so it'll be rulings about practically everything. I have notes in my notepad. If you do have a question, you are free to ask said question. I don't need to look at myself. I know how awful I look. And I have kind of like some things that I've gathered from some people that I'm just going to be going over. And then I can do like a Q&A. If you have like a question, feel free to ask it. If I don't answer it immediately, I will be typing it into my notepad and I will answer it at the end when I'm done with my stuff. I will be uploading this to my YouTube, XD. So if you can't watch the full thing here, or the VOD ever gets deleted or anything like that, you are free to go over to my channel and watch it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But anyway, getting right on into it. There we go. That's the scene that I needed. Okay, so the first part, this card, Tea Party. So Tea Party has been errataed. We have got a functional errata for Tea Party. There has been a post about this, and I believe it is on the Force of Will website itself. However, this paragraph break right here, I'm assuming you can see my mouse, but the paragraph break between remove this card from the game and this card gains is no longer there, which means it is now just all part of the resolution of the card, which means that Tea Party's effect, the this card gains, put it from your removed area, blah, 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 is functionally the same as Heart to Heart Talk now, okay? It's practically the exact same card for the most part. It just doesn't draw a card on resolution, okay? It is still a activated ability and continuous effect in the RFG. However, it is no longer a continuous effect to give the activated effect. So you can't do like Death Scythe loops, stuff with like Yggdrasil Malefic Verdant Tree, things like that. That is all gone, okay? So that errata is in place, and that will be in place for the American Wanderer event coming in the next couple weeks. I think it's in 2 weekends from this weekend. Yes, 2 weekends from this weekend will be that Wanderer event. I believe there is a EU Wanderer event. However, the EU does have a slightly different CR, as well as different erratas and functionality on certain cards, so we'll be going over a little bit of that as well. Okay, so that's Tea Party. That is number 1 scratched off. The second one, so with Wanderer coming back into the foray, we have a bunch of people playing older rulers, specifically rune rulers and rune decks, and other things like that. So, I guess I'll just search one up. So, right, if you have Brunhild or you have Hanzo, Loki, anything like that, you get your rune deck, your runes, they flip, you copy them, they go on to the chase, and there's a functional copy on the chase of the rune that you have revealed from your rune deck. A couple things about the functionality of runes. We can actually use these two right here. Depending on the typing of the card, depends on what can be affected by it. So as an example, if we look at Don't Cheat here, right, I'll blow it up so we can all see it on the screen. If we look at Don't Cheat, it says you can play it without paying its cost if it targets a spell that was not played from a hand. So that includes Grave, that includes RFG, that includes things like that. It also includes the Rune deck. However, it only cancels chants. The thing to keep in mind with this, of it only canceling chants, this is not a chant. Even though it is a spell, it is being casted from the rune area and being copied, it won't become an entity or anything like that. It is not considered a chant. It has to specifically have the chant typing, like Blade of Faith does, right? So Blade of Faith has Chant Master Rune. All of the cards that could be splashed between the rune deck and the main deck all have Chant/Rune. All the cards that could only go in the rune deck just have Rune. So keep in mind with cards like Don't Cheat or other such spells that specifically say cancel a chant, cancel other things like that, they're only going to cancel actual chants. They're not going to be able to cancel runes. They're not going to be able to cancel specifically master runes, things like that. Okay. So that is that one. Oh, I meant to look this one up. So we're going to look this up together, as a matter of fact. So the next topic that we're going to talk about is shift. Boy, do I love shift. We'll take this one because it has the reminder text. So shift has the reminder text of you may play either side of this card, or you can flip it while it is in play, and you can use the shift anytime you would play a spell chant. The thing with shift, playing a card, it should be 700, 900. Play cards and abilities. There it is. So I meant to ask, because I forgot that this isn't in the English CR, but we don't have a point in the English CR at which you would determine where you would order a card, right? So normally in play cards and abilities, I believe in the German version of the CR, there is a like a line of text somewhere around here, which is when you would order a card. That does not exist within the English CR. However, if we take a look at excuse me, if we take a look at how cards and abilities are played, we can kind of determine where it would be. So if it's in a chance standby area, you flip it face up. If it's being if the card being played has shift, decide which side to play. And if it's being an alternative card, you have to pick which side, and then if it has an awakening, you choose whether or not you are awakening the card, and then it moves to the chase. So it has to occur before 903.2e, or it occurs exactly at 903.2e. It would depend on when they would want you to determine playability. So if I had to guess, I believe that the order mechanic is either after 903.2d, so it's between 903.2d and 903.2e, or it's right after 903.2c and before 903.2d, or the third option is just a subpart, so it'd be like 903.2e-2. Okay, so that would be where I would put where you would order a card. So if you have a shift card, you determine the shift side, which side you want to play of the shift card, and then you're still able to order it because it would be in a lower section of the CR, if that makes sense. It should hopefully be getting added within the next CR revision, but hopefully it does. Is my voice a little low? I can turn myself up. That is not a problem. I don't know if that's better. But yeah, so for shift cards, you are able to order the shifted side. So you would determine which side you are going to play, either Alice of Shadow or Alice of Light in this case, and then you would be able to order it, okay? You can't, if it's in play and you shift it, you can't choose to order it at that time. But if you play it from your hand, as the shifted side, you are allowed to order it. Okay. Do I have other stuff with order on here? I do. We'll go over a lot of the order stuff, because order in general is pretty sussy, I guess, is the best way to describe it. So there are a few things with order. This card is one of them, and we'll talk about Death Scythe as the other one of them. Are you still able to shift while ordered? Oh, if you're able to flip to the other side? Ooh, I didn't even think about that. That's an excellent question. Shift, is it the functionality of a chant? Give me, what am I looking for? Alice of Light. You may play either side of this card. To flip this card, you may shift anytime you can play a spell chant. Something tells me you should be able to. The entity itself doesn't change on the shift card, if I remember correctly. Shift is a continuous and an activate ability. We don't care about the cost portion. And cost, if this card is physically passed side up, turn this card future side up. You can only play this at main timing. To resolve the effect of an activated shift, flip the card so that it's future side up. This is referred to as to shift. If you play it and resolve it, it is not considered... if you play it future side up, okay. It is not considered to shift the card, okay. Yeah, there's nothing that would stop you from doing it, being able to shift it, because under order, Kaguya, I guess, works. Because under order, it's just the once per turn as you play it, you may choose to order it, it gains blah, 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 and then it becomes a J ruler. You wouldn't be functionally changing where the J ruler would be. It's not like moving a zone or anything like that, it's just changing its, like, orientation. It's still the same entity. Yeah, it should follow all the same rules. So it's still like the double-sided card. It's still the same entity. It shouldn't prevent anything from being a J ruler. I don't care about colossal rulers. J ruler. ZMR. It's not moving zones. And even if it did, ordered cards would move according to their printed type. No, the card never leaves play with shift. They just flip over. So like enter abilities and like stuff like that don't trigger, but like when this enters the field or shifts, that would, like, shifting would function. If it moves to the ruler area, it would not move. If the card is by some... Yeah, there's nothing that would stop it from shifting. So there's nothing in the CR that should stop it from shifting, so it should be able to shift. Would be my final ruling, I guess, on that. But in addition to shifting with order, the other thing with order is Blazer. So Blazer, you can destroy a J Resonator your opponent controls. They lose all abilities, and then if a J ruler was destroyed, the ruler your opponent controls loses all abilities until end of game. The verbiage of Blazer is such that it does not require the J ruler that you destroyed to be the ruler that moves back to the ruler zone, right? It just blanks the ruler your opponent controls, okay? I know it doesn't say all rulers, however, functionally with how this works in English under its current printing with no functional errata, it will blank order, which will prevent you from revolution ordering resonators, and it will blank both tag rulers under the English version of the card. Again, this is no errata, purely with the English translations, everything like that. It will blank an order card, and it will blank both tag rulers. So whether or not they're fallen angels, whether or not they're six sages, it'll do all that, okay? Again, if it gets a functional errata, which I believe in Europe it has, to specifically say like non-order non-order J ruler or something like that. Or like I think the errata is something along the lines of it won't blank order rulers and it will only blank the ruler it kills if it's under tag. I believe that is the errata in Europe. However, that is at the discretion of the tournament organizer and those people over there. Again, purely for the American event, for English American events, it is going to function. It will blank the order ruler and it will blank both tag rulers. I'm telling you all this now. So that is how Blazer would functionally work. Death Scythe. So your opponent's J ruler loses and cannot gain imperishable and swiftness. So why am I using this as an example? For something like Nyarlathotep. Nyarlathotep. Please be the right one. Shoot. Nyarlathotep. There we go. The other thing with order is the ordered card becomes a J ruler and it gains the following abilities as long as this card is in your order area. The J ruler type and those abilities cannot be removed from or lost by the ordered card in any way. So, this will give Force Command Chaos to the card it is ordering, and it will also give the ordered card plus 200 in swiftness. If your opponent has a Death Scythe in play, your opponent's J ruler loses and cannot gain imperishable, and in this case, like swiftness, right? The order effect will prevent the swiftness from being removed. Okay, that's important to note. Other things like this that might be important would be like Kaguya's, that gives a ordered buff and flying based on the number of additions you control. Let's say you Gradius a Hanzo and it resolves, but they have 5 moons in play. The Hanzo will not die. That ability to buff itself cannot be removed. So it'll still be a 900 even if you somehow blink it. Okay? Everything else will be removed from the Hanzo, but it will not lose Force Command Moon, it will not lose this Enter effect, and it will not lose +X in flying, because they cannot be lost. So that is an important functionality to understand for ordered cards, is that the abilities being given to it by order are always there. They will never go away. This is mainly relevant for stuff like Dante, Kaguya, and Nyarlathotep are like the main ones. The other ones are less important, but still important, so keep that in mind. That one we can get rid of. That one we can get rid of. Got all that. So this is going to get into like a little bit of a verbiage thing. So dinner time, some people have been on this. We've been kind of on this for playing. The you cannot play non-resonator spells until end of turn. It's saying you cannot play non-resonator spells means that the card you play has to be a resonator. It doesn't mean it can't not also be something else, like in the case of something like Melfi. So like, for example, Melfi is a resonator, but she is also treated, as a chant when you play her. She can be played under dinner time because she is a resonator spell. She is also a non-resonator spell, but she is a resonator spell. She is not just a non-resonator spell. Okay, so there are very few cards where this matters, mainly the Melfi interaction. However, non-resonator versus like you can only play resonators are two different things, okay? Like if this card said you can only play resonators until end of turn, you wouldn't be able to play Melfi because she was a chant. So do keep that in mind. Abdul doesn't stop the enters of order because it's on the order card and not given the enter to the J-Reso. That is incorrect, depending on which Abdul you're talking about. Andul. I'm assuming you're talking about the ruler? No, you can, or enter abilities of cards your opponents control don't trigger. Did Abdul get eroded? I don't think he did. Enter? Should be an old rules. And rulings cannot be destroyed. Old keywords icon. Is it still just... Oh, they still just have it as a keyword. Enter is an automatic ability held by cards. Enter text. Okay, so they just updated it, I guess. You meant the resonator. Oh, but that one does. Well, this one wouldn't stop ordered cards anyway because they're... this only stops resonators. This doesn't stop J rulers. So by the time they enter the field, they're no longer a resonator. So this just wouldn't stop it. This Abdul would stop it, funnily enough, because it's affecting the enter effects themselves to just not trigger. And it's under controls, which I believe is just any, it doesn't have to be an entity, so I believe it'll hit things even in the order. The card in a specific player refers to an entity that player control. During a game are controlled by a player who controls abilities of effects. Yeah. Controller is just who owns it. OG Abdul actually pretty good. He's alright. Just judgmenting him as a pain. He's okay. It's just weak. But yeah. So, keep that in mind about the dinner time stuff. The other thing is, we'll do alternative cards. Not all. I don't know why I typed alternative cards into there. So alternative cards, Flame of the Outer World. It's just Flame of Outer World, maybe? Yes. Okay, so alternative cards, typically they have, a lot of them will have a half that has been printed as a singular standalone card previously in the past. In this case, we have Satan's Phantasmal Body and Flame of Outer World. So Flame of Outer World, this original version, and then the alternative card, Satan's Phantasmal Body, Flame of Outer World, are two separate card names, right? So when you're going to build like your deck, if you put in 4 copies of Flame of Outer World, you can also put in 4 copies of Satan's Phantasmal Body, Flame of Outer World, because it is a different name. So, in the case of, like, any alternative card like that, like 4C, like... What are the other ones? I know 4C and Flame. Those are, like, the 2 main ones I know. Thunder, stuff like that. You can play, like, quote-unquote 8 copies of the card, because the name is functionally different. So Satan's Phantasmal Body, Flame of Outer World is a different card than just Flame of Outer World. Can you revive an order card or tag ruler if you make it non-astral again, referring to the Blazer? Pretty sure you can't. No, it loses all abilities and Judgment is an ability. So you would not be able to Judgment the ruler again, even if you healed it. So do keep that in mind for alternative cards. People will be playing 8 copies of certain things sometimes. So it's not like it's not like they're cheating. That's just how the alternative cards like work. One of the bigger, like, I guess, quote unquote combo decks from back when Mujdart and Almerius were first released in Magic Stone War was a deck that played 4 4Cs and then 4 copies of Mirage, which was also 4C on the bottom half. So, and Mirage let you cast 4C for free, so you got to play 7 plus draw 2 cards in your deck for free mana, for 0 mana. Um, the other thing with stuff like Flame of Outer World and then like the alternative cards and stuff like that would be something along the lines of, I mean, 4C works as well, but Space-Time Anomaly also works. Oh god, why do they all have different names? So we can see here there are two different printings of Space-Time Anomaly. There's the original one that has the remnant and the reminder text of what remnant is, and then there's the newer one that just has the keywords, but it also has mage art as a subtype. So whenever a card has a newer printing of it, every older version of the card is the exact same as the newer printing. So even if you are playing these versions of Space-Time Anomaly, it's still going to be a mage art, even though it doesn't say it on the card itself. So any Space-Time Anomaly that gets printed from now on will be a mage art until, if they print another Space-Time Anomaly in another set and it doesn't have mage art on it, this one will no longer be a mage art. Keep that in mind. So that's kind of important to look at with reprints. And if, hang on, I think I have the 104.7e. 104.7e, literally right here. I knew it. So the most recently printed version of a particular card is considered correct and will supersede all previously printed versions. Treat all previous printed versions of a particular card as if they had all information of the most recently printed version. If the most recently printed version is part of an alternative card, only the information of that part is used for previously printed versions. Any errata, replace or supplement. Okay, so do keep that in mind for older printings of cards versus newer printings of cards. If you're an older player, I guess you're from back in the Stone Age, from when I played, and stuff like that. Let me bring up like Jin. So if you're from back in the Stone Age like me, you will see this black enter box, and you will think, oh, that only triggers when that card is played from my opponent's hand, and will not trigger when the card just comes into play naturally or by some cheat-in type mechanic. That is incorrect. Enter functionally changed. So all the black box enter effects now just simply trigger whenever the card enters the field, regardless of where it entered the field from. So do keep that in mind if you are a newer player returning. That one will be important. There's that. That one's over. Alternative cards went over that. Non-resonator versus only resonator. Ooh, my favorite. Updates in verbiage. We're going to go back up here. And type spell chant. I was happy when they finally changed it. It made a lot more sense, especially when they started printing cards that said when this card enters the field, and then they also just had the enter keyword. It was a little bit, what's the word for it? Confusing, I guess. Especially for like newer people, because I was around the time when I started playing, was in Twilight Wonder, and they had like the Percivals and stuff like that had when this card enters the field, but then all the cards from Grimm just had the enter like black box, and it was like, no, they're functionally different, and it was just annoying. Different types of like older cards. So kind of going back to the Space-Time Anomaly, you can see that this card says spell chant instant, whereas this version does not. It says quick cast. So back in the olden days, cards used to be referred to just spell chant or spell chant instant. If an old card refers to spell chant, it just refers to a chant. Okay, so anything that says spell chant is just a chant. It can be countered by, again, things like don't cheat, stuff like that. Old cards with chant instant are treated as cards with quick cast. All right, so a card, even though this has its newer printing, right, so it just has quick cast naturally, but any old spell chant instant cards are treated as if they themselves had quick cast. This is important for a card like Fair's Spell, which cancels cards with quick cast, or if we ever get another card in the future that stops cards with quick cast or anything like that, that'll be an important ruling to know. Old cards with the chance standby subtype are just treated as if they have trigger. I'll get into chance standby. It's the last thing I want to do because I hate chance standby with a passion. But anyway, that is one thing to know. Cake Zone and Zeke's had that word also. We can look. That's half the fun of this. Cake Zone. Cancel target normal spell. They have normal spell on them. Treat the type spell on old cards as chant. So normal spells are just chants. Stuff like that. It used to just cancel chants because it used to be normal spells and summon spells. But now just the type spell is treated as chant. Actually, I think Zeke's canceled summons, right? Did they change that functionality? Cancel target summon spell? That's just counting the... So that's just counting the type. Do they have a thing that refers to summon spell? Yes. Oh, here it is. Just resonator spell and non-resonator spell. So they still have references for that. My favorite precision pierce. I fucking hate precision pierce. Yeah, so there's all that stuff. Additions as well. Old additions have subtypes. Field, resonator, ruler, J ruler, blah blah blah. If something refers to an old edition with the resonator subtype, it should be... Is this just from addition in the chase, it moves to the target? Yeah, okay. So this is just saying that when you play old cards that say Edition Resonator, Edition J Resonator, stuff like that, it has to have a legal target when you play the card. When it resolves in the chase area, it will come into the field attached to the target. If the target is illegal at the time that the card resolves, then it cannot come in attached to the target. If an effect would move a addition like that onto the field, so something like Kaguya's Moonbeam Butterfly, things like that, you move it onto something that it can be legally attached to. If it can't be legally attached to anything, it just gets sent to the grave. Same type of thing with other additions and all that. If an addition does not have addition field, or just addition as like a subtype, or bestow, or like anything like that, the card just gets sent to the grave if the target it is being attached to ever becomes illegal. Okay, if it ever becomes detached anyway, it just gets immediately sent to the grave. And that is how all the old editions and old edition rulings and stuff like that function as well. Okay, that one's done. At end of turn versus until end of turn. So we'll use space-time anomaly as one example, and then we can use like phantasmal ascendant as another example. Genesis creation can only grab addition field. That is correct. It has to have that subtype. Okay, so Phantasmal Ascendant and a lot of the Niar cards have the text at the next end of turn and then a trigger effect. So if a card has the at next end of turn, there it is. At the next end of turn triggers, they occur at 505.53. So they occur before cleanup, and then there's another priority sequence that occurs after. That is the point at which at end of turn triggers occur. Cards like Space-Time Anomaly that say until end of turn occur down here in cleanup. Over here, all continuous effects applied until end of turn end. They apply at 505.5b, which is, this is all during cleanup. Okay, so all of this stuff will cease to like occur. So basically when the turn is being transferred over to another player, until end of turn triggers will go away, or until end of turn effects will go away. If something has an at end of turn trigger, it will stay if it's played at the priority sequence after the at end of turn trigger, basically at the second step of the end phase, if that makes sense. So that is just a thing to keep in mind. A lot of the time, the cards that say until end of turn are mainly things like stat decreases or like other things like that. A lot of just end of turn triggers are going to say like at next end of turn or at the end of turn or things like that. Okay. So that is something to note. Repeat this final step again. Interesting. 505.5e is interesting to me because since you don't go to cleanup to discard until the very end, you can discard a card and make cause an ability to trigger off of discard, so something like Charlotte's Protector or anything like that, and it'll cause you to perform a priority sequence, and then you'll repeat this whole step again. But you've already gone through this step, so if you do something like you're playing Violet, for example, and something got buffed, the continuous effects will cease to apply. You can go to end step with 8 cards in hand, you discard Charlotte's Protector, it'll trigger, that thing isn't buffed anymore, and then you have a priority sequence to kind of like kill it with Gradius or something like that, which I think is very interesting, how you can functionally like change that because of how this is layered, basically. Weird things you find looking at the CR sometimes. I can delete this. Oh, that is a long one. Details ISIS. Let's say I cash. Or her being ordered. Will she still be able to use the floating will? Will she generate something up 3 resonance off? And can I lure it a resonance? She's there for a minute. No, if her resonance trigger has already resolved, the floating will not cease to exist. It is not a condition for her to be in play for the will to cease to exist. You can lure out a resonance, though. For it is not a will ability. I'm pretty sure. That is... I did not want to do that in Notepad. Will ability. Abilities. Automatic abilities that trigger by playing a will ability. Yeah, no. Yeah. You can lure out a resonance trigger. Okay. A friend of mine brought this up, I guess, during their playtesting. Keep in mind, old regalia, so things like, I guess I can just, reglia. Oh, there's so many cards that reference regalia. It's like the older regalia, Jesus. I wish it would just search the type for me. Regalia. Search. So old regalia, even the ones from Vin 2, this, Change the World, Orb, all these things, all of these regalia are attributeless. They're technically considered void, as you can see down in the bottom. That's important for things like, I think, Alice, maybe. These do have attributes. You can see their attributes right there, so do you keep that in mind. These are attributeless. These ones are not attributeless. What about the same situation with the new Violet that banks will forever? This will does not cease to exist during the recovery phase as long as you control this card. The will stay because this card type effects are conditional on the card being in play, not whether or not they've been blanked or not. So if she's removed somehow, then it will cease to exist at the next phase. Well, no, it would have to be on a conditional, because it would be you filter through the will, and the will just has, the will itself would have the effect, but it would be based on that card existing. Yeah. So it would still stay. It's not based, it isn't based on the violet itself having the effect. It gives the floating will that continuous cloud effect. So that'll stay. Oh, effects versus abilities I have on here. So this is for stuff like Linosphæria, however you pronounce this card. You can see I typed it in like 8 times and it failed every time. What? Lino? Lenore. Oh, Linosphæria. What about Paramagic? Yeah, same thing. Arena Expansion Linosphæria. Non-Magic Stone entities your opponent controls lose all abilities during your turn. So abilities are based on what a card has. And so abilities can be gained different ways and by different like blanket effects. So things like that would be something like, let's take Belial for example. We use Belial. So Belial giving Resonator tokens you control +2/+2 and Bane, right? So we'll just take that text. So this text, this whole line of text that Belial has is an ability. Okay? So him having this line is an ability on himself. Him giving stuff Bane gives them the ability Bane. Him giving stuff +2/+2 is an effect of giving them +2/+2, right? So this whole line of text is an ability that causes an effect. That effect gives stats and also gives another ability, okay? So, Linosphæria, if your opponent is playing Belial and they make a token, that token will retain +200/+200. However, it will not retain Bane. Okay. And the reasoning for that, funnily enough, is because of how it's sort of dependency. It's not really dependency. So if the order is not decided after this, don't worry about 9 whatever. The timing of an effect applied is determined as this: the time the continuous ability became active, or the time the effect is made active, or is made by an ability. In the case of an addition, it applies a continuous effect. If for any reason the timing is still the same, the turn player at the time decides which one applies first. So you just apply them both. However which one applied first, right? So actually that's an excellent question. So the continuous ability became active. So if it's the continuous ability becoming active, the question is whether or not it's relevant on the ability being active as a game state, which I think is how it works, or it being active on the target in question, are applied at the same time in the above conditions. I think it's just when it's applied to the game state itself. So in that case, Belial's front effect is always going to be active from the very start, right? So it will never, it'll always be active first, if that makes sense. And then when they play Linosphæria, it will come into play and activate second, right? Because it was played later on in the game when Belial's been active since the beginning of the game. However, if you are to flip a Belial, this is a different effect. This is a different continuous effect, right? So it will, the Leonor Sphyria will still blank the Belial, right? So this is irrelevant. But if in a case where this came into play and was somehow unaffected by Leonor Sphyria, it would give the full effect. Just for one turn, though. Because then the Leonor Sphyria would have been active before the new Belial continuous effect was active, which means Belial's on a higher layer now, but then Leonor Sphyria will turn off, and then it'll turn back on again on the next turn, which makes it higher than the Belial active again. So that is an interesting thing to note about continuous effects. It's the same thing if the Belial were to die, right? So if the... Actually, that's a good example. So if you have a flipped Belial and it dies, the Resonator tokens will retain Bane for the turn, because that continuous effect would apply above Leonor Sphyria to blank them. I'm sure it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but that's just how it works. So if you ever get confused about layers, because layers suck, always feel free to ask your judge like how situations would work if you're ever confused or anything about that. Because things that turn off and on again and how continuous effects apply is very awkward in this game. So just something to keep in mind. We don't need to talk about that. That's done. And then Magic Stones. This was brought up to me today. Reale? So supposedly a lot of questions have been asked about Reale and effects similar to Reale in how you treat fire magic stones you control as light magic stones and darkness magic stones. And then they're treat this card as a fire. And then something like Nyarlathotep's Doll that says treat this card as a fire magic stone. The main question is, why does this, which says treat this card as a fire magic stone, not allow you to tap it for Red Will? Because you are treating fire magic stones you control as light magic stones and darkness magic stones, right? So why can't my Nyarlathotep Doll be treated as a be able to tap, right? That is the main question. The other one is like, even though this is a fire magic stone, why can't I just tap this for red, right? Magic stone. Okay, so it's 202.4e, and 202.4e says a magic stone with a magic stone type has the will ability produce blah 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 even if the text doesn't contain any of that. Okay, so the main thing to keep away here is magic stone with a magic stone type. This has a magic stone type, right? But it is not a magic stone. So because it is not a magic stone, it is not allowed to tap for will, in accordance with the rules of the game. If this card was somehow given the trait of magic stone, then this would be able to tap for will. Doll triggers her own resonance. Nyarlathotep Doll does not have a resonance for fire magic stones, but it does trigger resonance fire magic stone, which is the point. Because resonance is when a fire magic stone comes into play, which this is being treated as a fire magic stone, so it will trigger resonance fire magic stone. But it cannot tap for will, because again, it has to be a magic stone with a magic stone type. We have an addition with a magic stone type, therefore it cannot produce will. Okay. Um, I hope that makes sense. So that is that. Magic Stone typing. All right. And then lastly, chance standbys. We're going to look up ambush. Get rid of these other pages. We're going to look up ambush. We're going to look up flame trap. Then we needed, what's the last one? Portal of Truth? Wrong. Wrong thing. Portal of Truth. I believe. Okay. Chant. Standby. Play cards with trigger. So trigger is a fun keyword. The main thing with trigger is, so you can pay 2 will of any type. It can be 2 void will, 2 red will, 2 whatever will, to set any card in the game, by the way, in your chant standby zone. This includes cards that don't have trigger or the resonator version stealth. Okay, so you can bait your opponent out if you really want to spend 2 will into setting a fake card. That is something you are allowed to do. If you're playing like Hades, like old Hades, which revolve, like it gets like a lower cost based on the amount of cards in your chance standby zone, you can set cards that are never going to leave your chance standby zone in your chance standby zone. That is something that you can do. Cards with trigger and stealth have different conditionals in order to flip. There are 3 types of conditionals. Let me see if I can remember them all. I guess I should have just kept trigger open. Play cards with trigger. Maybe chance standby is better. Chance standby. No, there is no god. Okay. Didn't trigger used to ignore priority, and they fixed it because of how it is signed to the future. So the main one with priority stealing was Flame Trap, I think. I don't think it was signed to the future. It might have been. They both kind of served the same functionality. Signed to the Flame Trap was just more useful in Turbo Gwyber matchups because you had a Fire Magic Stone that was in the deck because you were playing Guinevere primarily. So you already had Fire will for it, and because of how many resonators you were putting into play, you didn't have to work around the conditional of Sign to the Future. So the main thing people were doing was using Flame Trap and stealing priority in order to nuke an opponent's board before they played a Gwyber after playing 2 resonators. Was kind of the thing people were doing back then. Or trying to do back then. However, that is not how trigger functions. So how trigger functions is a couple of different ways. Whenever a card meets its conditional, it can be triggered. At the point in time in which it is triggered, you flip it and it is considered triggered at that time. However, let's say your opponent plays their 4th resonator, right? You have your Fire Magic, you have Flame Trap, your opponent has whatever, etc., etc. Flame Trap can activate at quick cast timing. However, it still has to go through priority. So what'll happen is your opponent can play their 4th resonator and you can trigger Flame Trap, right? Flame Trap can be triggered. However, it will not go on to the chase until the next available priority sequence possess to you, the player. So in the case of Flame Trap, so even if it is quote unquote triggered, you have caused it to trigger. It is active. It has been triggered, but it's almost treated as an automatic ability, where it just simply won't go on to the chase until there is an available priority sequence. However, in Flame Trap's case, it has to be an available priority sequence belonging to the controller of the Flame Trap. Okay. Ambush. Same kind of thing. It is a conditional based off of an event. So ambush is when your opponent attacks, it will trigger, and then it will, you flip it, it triggers, and then your opponent is given priority, and then the ambush goes on to the chase. I'm fairly certain. We can look at the CR. So triggered cards with trigger, right, are played as spells the next time you can play automatic abilities. All right. If you cannot play the card, you put it into the grave. To play a card with trigger, as its cost to play, perform the action so shown on the trigger text before the colon if the trigger has it. You also need to pay the cost of the card with trigger if you play it from a zone that's not your standby. And then you can play cards with trigger as if they had quick cast. That's all part of that. Cards with trigger cannot be triggered the turn they are put into the chance standby area. That is something to keep in mind. And then up at the top here, so as you can see, they're all automatic cards. They're all automatic objects. And they become triggered when you reveal the cards at the time their trigger condition is fulfilled. Unless otherwise specified, they can trigger cards with trigger from their hand or standby only. An automatic card doesn't trigger again, even if it's already triggered. Okay. And then again, the main thing, they're played with trigger as spells the next time you can play automatic abilities. So that is the most important part. So anytime that an automatic ability would be able to go onto the chase, you are allowed to put that card onto the chase. However, it does not give you priority. You still go through a priority sequence of turn player priority sequence, followed by the next player. Okay? Or followed by you, I guess, if you're not the turn player. There are just different types of like activations, right? Like this is an event, this is a conditional, and then this is just, again, anytime. Just, you're allowed to play Portal of Truth. Like you can play Portal of Truth even if something isn't, if something's attack is not different than its printed attack or defense. You can still target something. Any target is legal with Portal of Truth. So those are different things with chance standbys. Same kind of thing works with stealth. Same kind of thing. So again, there are 3 different types of triggers. There is non-conditional, like activated, basically, activated triggers. There's event triggers, and then there is conditional triggers. So there's no stealing priority, there's none of that. They work basically like trap cards, and they just go on to the chase when an automatic ability would effectively go on to the chase. But then priority still works the same, right? So if I were to Flame Trap, it's counted as an automatic ability. Priority just goes immediately back to whoever the turn player is, and then you proceed to go through a normal priority sequence. Okay. All right. Well, good. So those were the main things I wanted to talk about today. I got them out of the way. Oh, I meant to hit record, but I guess I'm just going to rip the VOD and upload that instead, like I've done before. So you can trigger trap, and the op can still play a Gwyber before passing to you. It would have to be that the Gwyber had quick cast, I believe. So it would be something, they play their 4th resonator. The conditional is triggered, right? So like we're here. They become triggered when you reveal them at the time the trigger condition is fulfilled. And then they are played as spells the next time you can play automatic abilities, which should just be at any priority sequence. So you would be allowed to... so basically they play the 4th Resonator, it resolves, you trigger Flame Trap, but then your opponent has priority to do something in response. So if they want to... yeah, so like if you have a tea party, you can, if you have a quick cast Gwyber, you can play a Gwyber. You can sack them all off, you can do whatever, basically. Sorry, chance standbys are annoying. Trigger is annoying. They said they're going to update older rulers with like newer sets and stuff like that, and I hope they don't go super far back and update Seer of the Blue Moon, because holy fuck do I hate chance standby. But they might. They probably will. But yeah, so anyway, that's the end of what I wanted to talk about directly. If anyone has any questions they would like to ask about anything, a ruling, how something works, any of that stuff, I'll be sitting around and attempting to look for something to do for another 9 minutes. Otherwise, we'll call it there. I will upload this bad boy to YouTube, and it will be all there for y'all's viewing pleasure. Otherwise, I'm just going to look around this database. If you haven't seen, by the way, you can create an account over here if you don't have one. It just requires like name, email, stuff like that. Pretty generic stuff. And then you can also make your own decks right now. So there's now a deck builder. Pretty bare bones, but for example, you can search the cards and do the whole advanced search and stuff while you're in the deck builder. You can add them to whichever deck you want. You can add a new zone, like rune deck or extra deck or anything like that, if you so choose. You can save, cancel, all that, add a comment, and then you can also title your deck as well. You can see the number of cards that are in it, etc., etc. Anything? Am I still playing Lost Ark? Logan got me addicted to it. I am still playing Lost Ark. But I treat it very casually. I log in and kind of do my dailies, and I'm just slowly getting my item level up and starting to work on alt. So a scenario that'll never happen, but can I get rid of Revolution with Circle of Nullify? Circle of Nullify. He does not have Valhalla cards. What a son of a bitch. Force of Will, Circle of Nullify. Circle of Nullify. As you add this, choose an ability of the ruler. That ruler loses the ability. You cannot choose J activate. Revolution Order is a continuous ability held by rulers. Yes, you can Circle of Nullify Revolution Order. So why can the new 1-drop kill and remove the ability of an order ruler? He blanks it for the turn, and if you kill it, wouldn't they lose the order? So why can't the new 1-drop kill and remove? You'd have to specify what you mean by new 1-drop. I mean, I can search through 1-drops. But I just don't know what card you're talking about. Nyarla's Quick Cast, dude. Phantasmal Ascendant? This bad boy? Target J res loses all abilities until end of turn on this card. Wouldn't they lose the order? So, So what that is with order, right? So like if we take Kaguya, because she has the reminder text, so I don't have to go to the CR. So with order, specifically the like order side, right? The card that is ordered will gain the abilities attached to the order card, right? The ordered card becomes a J ruler and gains the following abilities as long as the order is in your order area. And that typing, the J ruler typing, and the abilities it gains from order cannot be removed from or lost in any way. Nothing can get rid of them. Literally nothing can get rid of them outside of the order going back to the ruler zone. Regardless of whether the card says it loses them, it blanks it, it rips it in half, it'll still have the abilities. Anything you can do to it will make it keep the abilities. So Phantasmal Ascendant, Gradius, Alice enters the Game of Gods, stuff like that. Yeah, the reason Blazer does what he does, so Blazer's blank effect, technically, as you're going through the sub-effects of Blazer, the order card will still have the ordered resonator will still have all the text on the order, but what'll happen is you'll destroy the ordered card, and then in the next sub-effect, where the card has already flipped back, the ruler itself, the order card, will flip back to the ruler side, and then the Blazer starts blanking the ruler specifically. So once he starts blinking the ruler, he's not blinking like the J ruler that you ordered or like the order card itself or anything like that. He is just purely affecting the ruler itself. Then you can no longer order. That is why Blazer is a stupid kind of special. For the same as the ruler Blazer, I'd have to read the ruler Blazer. Target J ruler your opponent controls loses all abilities, and then you destroy it. No, so this isn't affecting the ruler, so it doesn't prevent the ruler from having any abilities. This just makes the J ruler not have abilities. Which again, same concept, it'll still keep all the text that would be on the order side. So flying, +X if you're Kaguya, swiftness, +2/+2, etc., etc. If you're under Nyarlathotep. Yeah, this Blazer is unique. I don't think we have anything else in the game that blanks rulers. That is legal in Wanderer. I think there's some weird shit in Origins, or Old Valhalla. But I could also be wrong about that. Yeah, again, from what I have been told, this card has or is getting a, like, quasi-functional errata in Europe, where it doesn't affect order or tag the way it does, but just outright with how the verbiage is for English, and because we don't have like an errata text or anything like that, it will blank order, it will blank both rulers of tag. This is how it currently works. If we get an errata where it says if a J ruler, if a non-ordered J ruler was destroyed this way, then that stops it from working against order, or blanking the order ruler. But until we get something like that, how the card's gonna work. But we have seen translations have been a little iffy, especially between different regions. Fortunately, they're kind of all getting a little bit centralized for the most part. But predominantly, like, the French region had a whole bunch of functional erratas over the in Game of Gods, the first set, it had a whole bunch of functional erratas, because basically every Nyarlathotep card was wrong. And then in Reloaded, I think it also had some issues. But so we're just having, with the introduction of some international events and other things like that, we are now developing a problem where international cards, or cards in different regions, have different effects. So it makes things a little bit weird. As a basically what this occurred at the Cartamagica GP about a month ago, start of the month basically, where a player who was French was playing against someone who was playing Nyarlathotep, and in French all the Nyarlathotep cards, like Sudden Manifestation of Power, Phantasmal Ascendant, every single one puts the stone it gets into play tapped, right? Instead of just Isis and Magic Stone Dance of Chaos. So his opponent, who was English and had his English cards, was playing the cards the way that they are in most other languages, which is they come into play untapped, and then we had to explain to him the English version is like this, the French ones were translated incorrectly, etc., etc. So with the game kind of going a little bit into like an international stage, it's getting a little bit more wonky. But everyone was cool about it. It was resolved. But it just helps to have a unified, I guess, CR slash errata list over something like that occurring, right? Because, like, I know if I was that guy, I'd feel pretty bad. Alright, it is been 9 minutes. So I'm going to call it there, unless anyone has some last minute questions. But other than that, thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, I'm going to rip this VOD because I forgot to press my record button like an idiot. And then I will upload it to my YouTube, so expect it in the next day or so. And then I hope you all are having fun playing Wander and testing Wander. And I am excited for the American event. And I believe there's an EU event this weekend. If so, good luck to everyone participating in that. If there isn't, and I have no idea what I'm talking about, ignore me. And I hope to see all the Americans at the event in a couple weeks, which I will be head judging as well. So, if you have any questions about that event or anything related to it, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook, Discord, anything like that, my Twitter. I am fairly active on my socials. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your evening.